Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Strife's Sanctum. My name is Citizen Strife, and as you can see, we've got a doozy today. Because this is going to be a tale of two playthroughs. Because when I started this, I had no idea I was going to do Final Fantasy VIII. So the backstory was my internet sucks donkey dick. I was doing JRPGs on Twitch on weekends. Turns out I can't trust my internet to do anything because Comcast, I guess. Anyway, I decided on a whim to play Final Fantasy VIII and just record a bunch and record a bunch and record a bunch. By the time it started showing up, somebody decided, hey, I like Final Fantasy VIII. I want to join you on this journey and stop you from yelling at it all the time. So, fresh off our Silent Hill 2 podcast, I asked Leigh to join me in our on a playthrough, and we ended up going through 73 episodes of Final Fantasy VIII, almost all of them together, because I think she joined up right at the beginning or the end of Disc 1, and she's here today to talk about the journey. So, hello, Leigh. How you doing?
Good. You?
I'm doing very well. I have water because I'm probably going to need it because this is going to be long. But
yeah, I joined you at the very, very end of this one.
Yes. So for those unaware, I was trying to do shorter episodes and, because Phoenix Wright was taking 30 to 40 minutes on some of the testimonies, if not an hour. And I was like,
that didn't happen.
Yeah. And I was like, I want something shorter. So going forward, playthroughs are going to be a longer playthrough of like 50, 60, 70 hours, or in the case of Persona, hundreds of hours. Or Xenoblade 2, but the shorter 20, 30, 40 hour stuff, and now that we have a ton of subscribers, thank you very much, viewers, by the way, subscribers on this channel, subscribers on my main channel, a lot of them from Final Fantasy VIII, thank you very much. It stands to reason that people want to see more of it, and honestly, people want to see more Final Fantasies, because we went from Final Fantasy IX, you joined up in Final Fantasy VIII, and now we're going to do Final Fantasy VII. So we're going in reverse, because I've done 6 and 10, and I don't have access to 4 or 5, which I really want to do, because I want the Pixel remaster. But anyway.
Well, 7 is one of my favorites, actually.
Yes,
it was
and
the very first one I ever got to play.
Yeah, and I said this at the time, was I am not a bad cop of Final Fantasy VIII. I am not very fond of it, but in the grand scheme of things, I still put it in there as those, Final Fantasy IV through Final Fantasy X. That golden era of RPGs will never be touched again. I love me some Persona. It's not anywhere close to that run. And you came in a staunch defender of certain things that I absolutely loathe about this game. So it ended up being a good contrast.
You ended up enjoying it anyway.
And that's what I'm saying, is I enjoy the energy. Because as we'll get to, and I will preface this will be a spoilerific review if you couldn't tell.
Oh, yeah.
This might be the longest podcast we do, which is totally fine with me, because I said once Leigh joined up, I wanted to clear the air on a lot of the stupid shit, because, let's face it, if I hated a Final Fantasy game, I wouldn't play it.
Mm-hmm.
I would not play 12 again. I would not play 13 again. I would probably not play 2 or 3, because they're just, meh, 8 is badly designed. It has some great ideas, but the execution is what lets it down. And that extends to the story, that extends to the characters, extends to the side quests in most cases. But there is an energy. And that is the thing that draws me in. For every stupid thing I could say, and every stupid thing I am going to say that, weighs on me, there's still something to like. Do I like it as much as 7 or 9? No. But if I was to balance it out, it would have been probably one of the worst of that golden era RPGs, but it's still probably top half of Final Fantasy, just because there's an energy to Final Fantasy VIII that's not present in 12, 13, 15. If you like those, it's great. Even 7R. I love me the 7 remake. But outside of aesthetics and the voice acting and the whatever, the gameplay is kind of bleh. I would still prefer Final Fantasy VIII to 7R. So Leigh, what would you think of Final Fantasy VIII?
I have a real soft spot for Final Fantasy VIII. My first introduction to it was when a friend from high school gave it to me as a birthday present. So I ended up, at a time in my life when I literally had nothing to do because I was having trouble finding a job.
Oof.
So I was at home all day long with nothing much to do. And I was usually awake all night by myself with nobody to talk to. So I would turn on my PlayStation and play video games because why not?
Yeah, my
And
oh, go ahead.
Final Fantasy VIII was just, when I played it, I was blown away by how much fun I was having. Once I got used to the junctions and everything, I was like breezing through the game. It was awesome.
Yeah, for reference, I am a JRPG nerd. Absolutely, staunchly entrenched in it. I don't think you're as invested.
I honestly had not ever played a JRPG before Final Fantasy VII, I don't think.
Okay.
But then I started to really like them. I played Final Fantasy VII, 8, and 9 because my same friend who gave me 8 also gave me 9 for Christmas that year. And then I played Legend of Legaia, and I totally loved that one.
Okay. And Kingdom Hearts, which I think what spurred this on was I did the Kingdom Hearts podcast, and you were like, I'm not on it. I wanted to be on it. And I'm like, I already recorded.
I wanted to defend Kingdom Hearts from you.
Which is funny because Kingdom Hearts 1 I actually do enjoy. But
well, that's not the impression I got from when I watched you play it.
No, because I had lingering resentment and what I guess you would call darkness from it. Anyway, but we'll probably do the other podcast of it.
You were heavy in the darkness there.
Yeah, but playing the rhythm game makes me understand it slightly more because I can actually understand the story now. Doesn't mean I'm going to enjoy playing those games again, but I don't have to for another year or two, so who knows.
The story was pretty easy to understand in the first game.
Yes, and that's fine. I bring that up because you acted as Final Fantasy VIII's good cop to my kind of bad cop. I'm looking at Final Fantasy VIII from a perspective of I played everything before, I played everything after. 8's kind of like right in the middle of that golden era, as I've said, and Final Fantasy VIII is still regarded as a really good game, and I think not having, the baggage of, I mean, you saw me play Persona's games and whatnot, or Dragon Quest and whatnot, but you're not like super, super invested in, oh my god, this is the greatest fucking thing I've ever played, because there's a difference.
Yeah.
You're looking at it from a perspective of somebody that's like, I love this game to death, and I think something you did mention to me was that you looked up a lot of information, which was present in the Silent Hill 2 review. You brought up a lot of information I didn't know. So
yeah, when I really like a game and it lingers in my mind, I start looking up things about it because I want to learn everything there is to know about it.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Sometimes I will sit here if I have nothing better to do or the kids are being particularly bratty and I don't want to talk to them, I'll look up YouTube videos that go into like deep character analysis and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I, as you can tell, did not do that. So it's two sides of a different coin here, and that's why I always said you were the good cop in the situation. But I wanted to throw that out there. Oh, go ahead.
I'm a total nerd.
Yeah, but again, I wanted to throw that out there early so people understood what we're going to do, what we're going to talk about, and why kind of our... Like, I don't think we have differing opinions. I mean, the major things we do, but at the end of the day, I think we both still like Final Fantasy VIII a lot, and like I said, I do enjoy it. So
There's only a couple of things that we don't see eye to eye on, and that's mostly because, like I said to you once, I think it's just because you have a hard time relating to them.
which we'll start with. We might as I mean, we're gonna do plot and we're gonna talk about them. I mean, I've got a list of things. We might as well start with the elephant in the room, Squall and Renoa. This game hinges on them entirely. The game starts and ends with them. You know it's going to be a thing. It's right in your face, and that's what I don't like. Is for all the love, and it's not even the love aspect. It's the fact that you don't have the interpretation that, okay, are they going to get together? No, it's, we know they're going to get together because there's a fucking cutscene right at the beginning of the game that they do it. So they're focusing on love as a concept, but it's in your face.
But they don't outright say it. I mean, just because they hug doesn't mean they're going to end up together.
No, but Tidus and Yuna hugged, but we never actually knew they'd be together. I think it's the like breadcrumb analogy versus
This is why I said you can't sit there and take something from the past and hold it up to a present standard.
I suppose.
Because, you know, when Squall and Renoa were first conceived of, Tidus and Yuna weren't even a thing.
Well, no. And to be fair, Tidus and Yuna had voice acting. They had the fish out of water story, and we had Tidus as a stupid jock who does like girls, you know, because he's stupid and tried to hit on those Blitzball fans in the front row, and he did that stupid pose. So Tidus was a bit of a perv anyway, so he'd fall for somebody if they were halfway decently looking. Squall, no.
It wasn't that Squall didn't like girls. He was just trying to keep everybody at arm's length because he didn't want to get close to anybody and risk them abandoning him the way he felt abandoned by his big sister figure being taken away from him.
Yeah. And for reference, if people haven't played the game, it is, one of my criticisms was they didn't explain the Eleni Squall thing until the Laguna segment where they actually met up. But they did end up coming around to explaining a lot of the things that, you know, so my criticism of they don't explain a damn thing, they waited until the proper moment to explain it. So I am kind of like reeling back on my hatred of that. It was a storytelling method of show, don't tell until necessary. I'm a very, like, you have to tell me and show me a thing. But if you show me too much of a thing, I don't know if that came across. But as you were saying, you understood that Squall was this abandoned guy. And that was something I heard on Reddit, was Squall was an abandoned child.
He was. I mean, he didn't know either of his parents because his mother died giving birth to him.
Yeah.
And instead of helping raise him and his big sister Eleni, I mean, she wasn't really his big sister, but she was as good as. Instead of the town that they were born in pitching in and trying to help raise them, they got shunted off to an orphanage.
Off on a different continent, which is even worse.
Yeah. And, you know, Laguna, he went to this orphanage looking for Eleni, but he didn't even know about Squall.
Yeah, because that's a thing. It's like, did Rain know that Laguna didn't know that she had a child? Because that's even worse. I love Laguna, but that's like I like Eleni and everything, but I wonder if he ever knew.
I think that he might have known, but he thought that he would be able to be back and actually be with her by the time she had the baby.
Ew. Yeah, because
you know, there's that part when they're on the Ragnarok together where he talks about how after the mission is over, he wants to have a talk with Squall and tell him something.
Yeah, and it is a weird thing because at the end of the game we have Laguna and Rain together, so it's not like Laguna and Rain didn't like each other. It's like, holy shit, no, like Squall exists because of them. It's like, So
They got married. That's why her tombstone has his last name on it.
yeah, so again, it was one of those things that you have to pick up on, and me being the stupid blockheaded fuck, I need everything told to me right in my face. Which is going to be a tone for this whole discussion. Renoa, it's like weird cross, like Laguna liked Julia, but Julia didn't, because they got
Julia
cock
didn't.
blocked in the thing, and
Yeah.
that was such a good scene. But I'll talk about Laguna later. Um,
You know,
and
one of the fan theories about that is that General Caraway noticed how much Julia liked Laguna and sent him and his troop off to another continent in the war just so that he'd be able to move in on Julia.
I could believe that.
Yeah, Caraway is a dick.
Yes, and then he has the gall after he takes my fucking Ifrit card to say, "Take care of Renoa, please." I'm like, well, I'll take her
Well, yeah,
card and then take care of her. So shut the fuck up and leave.
and I can't give you back your card because I lost it to my best friend already.
Yeah, so we have to wait another whole disc to get it back. It's like, great. So yes,
Like you're such a dipstick.
yes, because Julia and Laguna were, sort of together because Laguna
Hmm.
had the hots for her. So
She
they,
had the hots for him too.
yeah, which I mean, to be fair, he is a charismatic dork, if nothing else.
I mean,
Um,
if you listen to the actual lyrics to Eyes on Me, she's literally talking about how she noticed him looking at her all the time, but he was completely unaware of the fact that she was looking at him too.
yeah, so Renoa is General Caraway and Julia's child.
Mhm.
However, the weird events of that situation, because he's a high ranking general, you told me that makes her sort of sheltered, and it does come across. Um,
She was very sheltered throughout her childhood. She had her mother died when she was a child, so like she knew her mother for a little while, but her father was just so self-involved with his own grief and his military career that he
mm,
didn't make time for her. He left it to the servants to raise her,
mm-hmm.
and she ended up resenting him because he wouldn't have any involvement in her life, except for the fact that he was exerting control over it. Like he would give her demands and things, and there were things that she was obligated to do because of being his daughter, like being the little pretty face at parties and greeting his guests and being the perfect little mini hostess and things like that. But he didn't give a shit about her well-being. He just was too wrapped up in his own grief over losing his wife
Mm.
and too busy with his military career to give a shit about how she was feeling. So she started rebelling.
Yeah, and I don't, because I'm trying to, I'm not, I'm trying to find a way to phrase this, so don't take this one way. Um, is it a possibility that because I never grew up being that abandoned kid like Squall, or that sheltered like Renoa, or say in your case, you deal with kids on a daily basis? My interpretation of kids is I see them at Lego, right? So I have
Oh,
no kids. I don't talk to kids. I don't interact with kids. I don't give a shit about kids. That's your kids. That's your thing. That's not you, that's other people's thing, right? That's what you see why I'm struggling to
yeah,
explain it.
I
But
I see it.
do you do you understand that more or less of Squall and Renoa growing up that way because you see that, or is it something that I'm just not seeing because it wasn't told to me to my face? Because that is something I dealt with trying to explain my case.
That's why I was saying that in my opinion you have a hard time relating to it because you didn't have any kind of similar life experience to that. I actually did.
Mm. And, and
My
and again, you don't have to get into this if you don't want to. If it's, I'm just throwing it out there as a question.
I mean, I can identify with Squall's feelings of abandonment because, I'm not gonna like, I don't really want sympathy for this. I'm way over it. But, my father left when I was really little. So have, I didn't have that much of an attachment to him. And, um, my mother liked to just stay off by herself and she didn't always want to interact with everybody. So, I can identify with Squall and Renoa's feelings of abandonment and not wanting, the parents not wanting them around.
Okay. And again, I do think that is a thing because Final Fantasy VIII is divisive, and I think it's divisive because of how what I feel is forced. I
And
don't see what you're seeing because
for
I
all
can't
that
see
their
it.
personalities are so different, his trauma took the form of him being extremely closed off in his own mind.
Mm,
I do that shit all the time. I will sit there and literally be completely silent for, unless I have to talk to somebody, I
mm-hmm.
usually don't. I talk when I have to, but unless the kids are around, I'm usually not talking.
Mm,
So, like, I know how to be like closed off by myself in my own mind. I spent a lot of my childhood that way, just like Squall did.
mm.
So I can identify with Squall on that because, I had a very similar upbringing. I mean, I wasn't raised in a freaking military boarding school, but,
Yeah, or a weird orphanage where we knew each other somehow. Um,
And then with Renoa, she didn't feel wanted by anybody, and I didn't have that many friends. So I knew what that was like to be unwanted by anybody.
yeah.
And for all that their personality types seem to be so opposite of each other, he's withdrawn, she's outgoing and cheerful and stuff. I was kind of both. And
Mm,
not only that, they recognize they see each other eventually as kindred spirits.
okay.
And that's how they're able to bond with each other. She starts to look past his whole gruff exterior and she starts to see the actual vulnerability that he's hiding. And he has been fascinated with her ever since she forced her way up. She made him she forcibly pulled him onto the dance floor.
Mm. Something you told me, and something that I always brought up was the Quistis thing, the secret area. And my interpretation of Squall, without knowing this context of opposites attracting and all this, was if you just wanted to fall for somebody, she's right fucking there. She's on to you. She's into you. She wants to be into you. The game kind of subverts it, and then Quistis admits it that she just wants to be his big sister rather than somebody she falls for. And that might be why Squall didn't. I'm sitting here going, dude, like, you don't have to jump off into space to save a girl. You don't have to jump off the building to go, like, the fucking thing with the Galbadian soldier in the fucking firefight, and he's the only guy who can do the thing. And he, careens and he finds Renoa because Zell told him it was a good idea. Like,
He's the only one who actually inspires that kind of behavior in him, though.
yeah. So my thought was, you're going to an extreme amount of trouble for one girl. She could be the best girl on the planet, but jumping off a building into a paratrooper's outfit while she's hanging off a cliff, jumping off into fucking space while she's possessed by some demon witch from the future. This is a bit much, game. And I'm like, Quistis was right fucking there in disc 1. That, I understood it, but I'm just throwing that out there as my side of the story.
Yeah, I get it. You're a Quistis worshiper. It's okay.
I ended up liking Selfie more the second this playthrough, but yes, my love of
Well,
Quistis still applies.
Selfie is just too fucking adorable not to
Yes,
like.
yes.
But but again, it's one of those things where, like I said, he was in this mindset of keeping people at arm's length. That includes his instructors. And
Mm-hmm.
at that point, she was still his instructor.
Yeah, so he couldn't bridge that gap, even though she was trying to tell him, dude, I'm not an instructor anymore. I want to be
And
more than friends.
she kind of misunderstood her own feelings there. She thought she
Yeah,
had a crush on him, but she really didn't.
yeah.
And
And
it was kind of good that he didn't see the blatant invitation she was giving him because it would have been a big mistake.
and they do actually play on it a couple of times. This is something that only happens if you do certain things. At the end of the Galbadian thing where you're introduced to Irvin, if Quistis is in your party, she kind of leans in on Squall and kind of flirts with him. If she shows up in the Balam Garden mission with Squall's team, she'll actually mention, you gave me a cold shoulder and I really fucking hated you for that. So they do, like, these are little context clues that Squall later on, because he deals with Renoa, understands, oh, I really fucked Quistis over pretty bad and I needed to apologize for that.
Mhm.
So,
Beauty of it is that he does have this growth, even if he doesn't always voice it.
yes.
He, that's why they gave you like access to his internal monologue so
Mm,
that you could see, he's not just some asshole who's rude to everybody.
yeah.
He's really got a lot going on in his mind and he just doesn't know how to articulate it.
Mm-hmm. And to be fair, Renoa notwithstanding, I just find her standoffish because I tend to like more subtle, like, okay, we're kind of both into each other versus, okay, we're opposites and we're attracting like oil and water. So again, that could just be a difference of
Yes.
opinion. Also,
She's also just a very direct person who doesn't believe in beating around the bush.
yeah, I will defend her. She did go back to the desert prison and did that on her own. She didn't just fall into space and have someone save her like a dork, which is something
Oh
I
god,
held against her a lot, right? So,
I loved what she said too when she was doing
I'll
it. She's
scratch
like,
you to death.
"No, not that part. The whole part where like she was talking about like what if Squall stays there? Like, but nobody told me to escape. Like
Yeah, it's like we're still under contract, and I own his
oh,
contract. I'm contractually obligated to be his girlfriend.
it's just so funny. Like her whole monologue there was just fucking
Yeah.
hilarious.
So,
She has a great personality. She's an upbeat person who
mm,
she didn't let her childhood bog her down the way Squall's did.
mm,
Squall kind of let his abandonment get the better of him,
yeah.
and the lengths he went to. I mean, yeah, he's doing the whole self-preservation thing. He's trying to protect himself from more emotional pain, but she took it in a different direction. Yeah, she felt abandoned by her father after her mother died, but instead of letting that define her, she kind of used, she put on this outwardly cheerful persona. She
Mm,
became a very outgoing, charming person, and she used all that charm to her advantage.
yeah. You're the most handsome guy here. Insert scruffy looking PSX graphics. Um,
I just love that whole "you're going to like me, you're going to like me"
how does he
line.
learn how to dance in 3 different turns? That seems unfair.
I think he was literally just watching everybody on the dance floor.
I mean, that is some crazy talent. That is some Taskmaster shit. Um,
Yep.
yeah. We
Hey,
talked
he's
about
a seed.
yeah. We talk about Quistis a little bit. One of the other issues I had with Final Fantasy VIII was the fact that the characters force the relationship onto Squall a little bit too much, rather than
Yeah,
just
they
kind of
really
yeah.
in Fisherman's Horizon, they really do like make the matchmaking
Mm.
very blatant and obvious.
Yeah, she pushed me off the damn cliff. I didn't. I still hold that against her,
That
but I
was
did get to
so
see a
damn
naughty
funny.
magazine. Goddamn Irvin.
That was too funny.
Yeah. So
She sat there giggling over it.
yeah. So yes, the other 4 characters, and I will just do rapid fire as to what I felt after playing this. Irvin, stupid. I just don't get him.
He's very
Quistis, I
forgetful.
like, but I like a little less because now I understand Renoa a bit more, and Quistis just kind of fell by the wayside because she doesn't really do much, which is kind of disappointing because she has the instructor thing, but she doesn't really add much to the plot. Zell has his moments of not being stupid, but God, he is fucking dumb and emotional. But the
Mm-hmm.
person who I ended up liking way more was Selfie. Because, god damn it, Selfie's great. I think she jumped ahead of Quistis, to be honest with you. I love me some Quistis, but Selfie, when she's on screen, is just magic. Because you.
She is easily one of my favorite characters in the entire game.
Mm. And I get it. Like, sometimes that Yuffie, Selfie, Riku, and I hate Eiko, for instance. Like, the difference is Selfie's like a 15, 16, 17. Eiko's 6. So you can see why.
I know.
Yeah, there's a difference when you're like that when you're 15, 16, 17, and you have like a lot of gumption, because that's what Selfie is.
I was just defending Aiko in a chat the other day.
Mm.
Because somebody was talking about what an annoying little brat she was, and I'm like, she's only 6 years old.
Yes.
And she doesn't know anything of the outside world. The only thing she knows is all the little the plays and dramas that her grandfather left behind.
Yeah.
So that's all she knows.
Yes, but you can see why some people would think that those characters, and Riku, like, not so much in 10, but 10 too, like, Riku does the Selfie thing. Yuffie does, they're all kind of that bubbly, like, they're all slightly different, but whenever you need somebody to just say, blow them to smithereens, like, Selfie's just great. Like, that whole missile-based thing is just like, I get to be Selfie all day? That's great!
Well, I mean, in Riku's defense, in 10, she had a lot more on her mind than she did in 10 too.
Yes. Yeah.
In 10, she was consumed in 10 with just trying to find a way to keep her cousin from dying.
Yes.
But in 10 too, she was like, "Hey, we fixed the big bad. Let's go out and have some fun now."
Yeah. And that's again the thing that does detract from 8 is the secondary cast does kind of get a few things, but they don't really, like, Squall and Renoa do all the heavy lifting, right?
Yeah.
At most, you'll see, like, Zell meeting with his family and helping in Balam because it's his hometown, but Quistis gets the beginning of the game and she gets Freyed, basically, and it's like, Selfie does.
There's actually a side quest with Zell that a lot of people miss just because of how much they don't like his personality.
Oh, yeah, you told me about this one.
There's a girl that they call her the girl with a pigtail. And she's one of the people who helps out in the library. She's behind the counter a lot there.
Yeah.
When you go into the library and talk to her, she'll ask you questions about Zell. She actually has a huge crush on him. But he doesn't know that. And there's actually a side quest that you can do throughout the first 2 discs of the game that will lead up to the 2 of them meeting up in the hotel in Balam. And the conversation that they have just depends on how many times you've talked to her throughout the first 2 discs.
Yeah, and I don't think we did that. I was so focused on some certain other side quests, I just kind of forgot. And to be fair, I wasn't using Zell at all, so.
No, that's true. And there were other quests that I told you about that you didn't even know existed.
Yeah, and I did them off camera, and I'm like,
did you ever go back and finish the Shumi Village thing with all the running around?
I believe so. Yes. I wasn't able to do the one in the canyon because I just couldn't find that fucking rock that they were talking about. I tried for like 20 minutes, and I was just like, no, I'm done.
You should have had me help you with that. I would have helped you find it.
Yeah. Anyway, so
you know, I've played through this game quite a few times.
Yeah. So, like I said, the other characters kind of focus in on Squall and Renoa, and they get the bulk of the other person who gets the bulk. We might as well talk about Safer. I know I kind of don't wanna because he doesn't really do much, but
he's another character that gets lumped into a bad category. I mean, he's not a categorically bad person.
No,
he just gets put in that role because of his personality.
Yeah, and I don't know if did they ever explain why he just throws away everything. Is it like he is under a spell, or he's just going along with it? Because
Or
when Adia
partly.
shows up, it's just, oh god, I am this guy now.
Well, at first, yeah, when Adia first shows up and, points out that he's backed himself into a corner and has nowhere else to go,
So she
she,
manipulated the shit out of him for that.
she offers him an out and he takes it. She gives him the opportunity to live up to his dream of being the sorceress's
My
knight,
romantic dream. Ew.
because that was something that he grew up with, this movie, which you don't really like his. I think it's something that you kind of, they don't actually say outright in the game, that this his favorite movie is the one that Laguna filmed, where he was the sorceress's knight
I
fighting that
mean,
ruby dragon.
and they
That was
dubbed
his
him
favorite
over
movie.
too. It's like, wow.
I know, right? So, and that's why he holds his gunblade the way he holds it, because Laguna held it wrong. So he that's like everything that he did, he was modeling himself after his favorite movie character.
Well, no wonder he wasn't a good seed.
And he had this he had this firm black and white, right and wrong view of
Hmm.
everything. Like, he had a very strong moral compass.
He sounds like
And
me half the time.
one of the things that they decided to do, because he was a real problem child in the garden, he would hold everybody to very exact standards, and when they failed to meet those standards, he would just act out and rebel against them and,
Yeah.
not have anything else to do with them. So it became a challenge of, what can we do to channel his energy into something productive and try to help him realize his potential and actually become a seed. And they wanted him to succeed.
Yeah.
He was sabotaging himself the whole time, because he was just so exact about his morals.
Hmm.
So they decided to let him be the disciplinary committee for the
Uh,
garden. They decided to try to, they were hoping that the responsibility would help even him out, but
nope.
he went power
Hmm.
crazy with it, and started using his power to bully everybody.
Yeah. Um. In that
But
oh, go ahead.
he still he still had ambitions, and he didn't know how to exactly make his ambitions reality. So when he starts, when Adia comes to him and offers him the chance to be her knight, he gladly takes it at first, but then he realizes that he's being manipulated, but he doesn't see a way out.
Hmm.
His friends are backing him up, and then eventually gets to the point where he realizes what he's doing is wrong.
Hmm.
He just can't stop, because
Yeah.
he thinks he's reached the point of no return, where no matter what he does, he can't go back.
Yeah.
He thinks that he's like dug himself too far down into the hole, and there's no coming back out of it. So he may as well just keep doing what the sorceress wants of him, so
Yeah.
that he can at least go out on his own terms.
Hmm. Yeah, I just like Safer always felt like they were trying hard to make a villain because they didn't want to overexpose the sorceress, but by doing so, they also limited the effectiveness of what the sorceress could do. Um,
So part of it was the fact that he had this deep seated rivalry in his head with Squall.
yeah.
When they were growing up in the orphanage, he saw how much attention Squall got from everybody, and he wanted that attention for
Mm,
himself.
yeah.
He just didn't know how to get it in a good way.
No.
So whenever someone failed to pay attention to him, he would act out and pick on whoever was an easy target, which
Mm,
usually turned out to be Zell,
chicken was.
because Zell was a very emotional child and was easy to pick on.
Yeah, I get that too. I'm not the type of person that likes to be picked on or had a practical joke taken on, so I'm the Zell type where, like, dude, just leave me the fuck alone.
Oh, dude, I was made fun of a lot when I was a kid. I ended up
Yeah.
like I was an emotional kid like Zell.
Yeah.
Like there's a little bit about each of them that I end up
Yeah.
identifying with because I had some of their different personality aspects at
Mm.
different times. Like being emotional like Zell or being comfortable closing myself off from everybody like Squall, being super cheerful and trying to be outgoing like Noah. Things like
Yeah.
that. I can identify with all of them at some point.
Yeah. Um, do you think the orphanage thing was done properly, or do you think that my problem was it does come out of nowhere? They try and try and try to justify the GF thing as the reason why, rather than Irvin himself, like, telling us, long ago that, oh god, I know who you guys are. There's like no breadcrumbs to that. Our inclusion was familiar faces. Like, that's it. Like, I
Yeah,
felt it
like
came out of nowhere.
he saw them, he recognized them all immediately, but they had no idea who he was, and he was hurt, so he kept his mouth shut. He
Okay.
didn't bother to tell them that he knew all of them because they didn't seem to remember him,
Yeah.
and he was hurt.
Yeah, and
Like he remembered them clearly because for him, the time that he spent in the orphanage was some of the best years of his life.
yeah, because
And
his dress
for
sense sure isn't.
and for them to not remember him, he felt really deeply hurt about that, even though we can't tell for sure because, he puts up a front.
Yeah, yeah. Because again, I do think it comes down to the GF explanation. I do like respect that they tried to come up with an explanation as to why, like, we don't know
Yeah,
this guy, but it does kind of just seem like they were fishing for an explanation rather than we had the
honest.
explanation from the beginning and this is why.
Yeah, I think that one, honestly, that was one of my few criticisms about the plot was that, you know, I mean, the twist about them all being in the orphanage together was great.
Mm.
I loved that. I absolutely loved that they were all in an orphanage together. But I think the GF taking their memories was a little contrived and just like
Hmm.
tacked on.
Yeah.
That was like my only real criticism about the game.
Yeah, my thought was what it ends up doing is it tries to add emotional weight to the sorceress battle, only to have the rug pull and we have more to go. I really think Adia is a strong character of what little you see of her. And all of the
Yeah,
stuff, like, if you take it in a vacuum, if the game was only 2 discs, right, and you were facing off with Adia and, like, you had to do battle with your motherly figure, that would have
with
been some.
basically your foster mother.
Yeah, so it would have been an emotional roller coaster, and I would have, like, respected that, kind of like a World of Balance thing in Final Fantasy VI, where, oh shit, the game's gonna end now, but then the game doesn't, and then they
Yeah,
have to come up with a second version of the same character because Adia was really strong in it. And sure, it's Ultimecia the entire time,
it's what you
but
get that emotional payoff when she's like, right after the battle when she seems to come to and she's like, "It's my kids. Is today a happy day or is it a sad day?"
yeah, and it's funny that
Like
she knows who they are. It does,
she knew who they were right off the bat. Yeah.
yeah. So that's kind of crazy. But it also lends itself to Adia versus Ultimecia. I think if you would have kept Adia as a, like, non-sympathetic, like, I don't know if the brainwashing is the best term, but you see where I'm going with this, right? Is maybe
I
it's
would
like
say
a conflict.
possession.
Yeah, maybe it's like a conflict of interest where she knows who they are and they know who she is, but she's still going through with it, maybe because of some, like, other kind of evil plot that she has. What ends up happening is Ultimecia, who we never see physically, we see, like, once in disc 3, then we see her again at disc 4, like all of the resentment and whatever we're supposed to, it's kind of like a Genova Sephiroth thing where we're supposed to have all this resentment and it's like it's somebody else this whole time, and it's like,
Well, I think oh, what was I about to say?
sorry if I trailed off.
No, well, like when you finally get to talk to her in disc, excuse me, I got the hiccups
Oh,
in
sorry.
disc 3 when you finally do get to talk to her and she talks about being possessed. That's exactly what it is. Like while she's possessed, she's kind of like a bystander in her own body. She doesn't have control over anything.
Yeah.
She's just kind of watching what's going on and not wanting to be part of it, but at the same time she's a prisoner in her own body.
Yeah.
That's how they explain it basically. She wasn't the one talking. I mean, that was her voice because her vocal cords and shit, but it was Ultimecia doing the talking. It was Ultimecia doing everything with her sorcery magic.
Yeah.
It was Ultimecia killing President Deling. It
Mhm.
was her battling Squall. It was not Adia.
Yeah, and I think I'm trying to think of the difference here. I've had an issue, and you might have picked this up if you've listened to other podcasts, and I'm talking both Leigh and viewers. I've had an issue with the mastermind villain in a lot of things. Ultimecia is the perfect kind of explanation for this. Ultimecia, as a character, we never like physically fight because we're fighting through Adia most of the time. Ultimecia sits back and does everything, and she's doing the actions, as you're saying, but we're not seeing them do the action themselves. Like, when I see a villain doing something, I want to see Kuja blowing shit up. I want to see Kefka blowing shit up, because I know he's the one responsible for all of, like, Kefka poisoning Doma, for example. He's the one showing me doing it. When I see Ultimecia, I'm like, you have it right there, but you have that extra hurdle of, oh, I'm just brainwashing you. I'm not really doing all this. And then you see her at the end, right?
I mean, they don't have like real time travel, so the only thing that she can do
Yeah.
is like astral projecting herself into another sorceress's body.
Yeah, and lives up to the final, like the fantasy stuff. Like, we've had shit like time loops and 2,000 years into the future. We've had, fucking, like, Final Fantasy III. We've had 8 different crystals and different worlds, and going into the world of darkness. We've had Final Fantasy V. We go into the nth dimension after jumping worlds. And, like, this doesn't make the weirdest sense because, again, time compression as a theory is a cool idea. I don't know what, like, outside of the visual spectacle of that weird ass cutscene at the end of the game, I don't know if we ever got like the full scope of time compression.
Well, I think the way they explained it was just that she wanted to create her own dimension where only she could exist.
Yeah, and what was weird to me was the actual overworld is the same overworld. There's just nobody in it. I think
Everything's all closed off and there's just nobody in that world.
Yeah, and maybe that's due to, budget constraints or whatever, rather than, oh god, we have the castle and then we have a Castlevania type other world. I mean, that would have been cliche too, but you see where I'm going with this. It would have been a lot more effective to say, okay, I have to go to deep sea deposit. Now it looks like hell while I'm trying to do it. Like, I can't call a shop because there's nobody in a fucking shop because we can't go there because everybody's fucking dead. We get like a scene of that. And again, I've put Ultimecia's castle as one of my favorite final dungeons because of the music, and the design is like Castlevania up the ass. I'm into this, which spurred me through that episode, sure. I don't know if the effect of compression, it's kind of like Final Fantasy I, where the time loop happens, but this guy exists, but he doesn't exist, and he sort of does, and he doesn't. Time travel has those weird rules where it's always like, we want it to make sense, but we can't really do it. And it goes back to the Odine example. I'm sitting there remembering 20 minutes as Dr. Odine trying to explain the junction of energy and all this shit. And I'm like, Am I saying anything?
Oh my god, that fucking little douchebag.
Mm,
I am my language can get very colorful if you guys
yeah.
know. So, yeah, that goddamn little clown and his gigantic, ridiculous, stupid little collar.
Yeah. Um,
He couldn't leave well enough alone. If he
nope.
had just left that poor little girl alone, none of this shit would have happened.
Yeah.
But
Um,
he just couldn't help himself. He has to research everything because he's the nosiest little fucker on the planet.
yeah. Um, uh, this does tie into what I felt was one of the stronger parts of the game, the Laguna segments. I've had issues
Oh
with
my god.
Squall, but whenever Laguna showed up, I was a happy ass camper because it was so
Laguna's
good.
just the cutest little dork ever.
Yes.
And he's got such great hair.
Yes, great hair and a weird fascination with leg cramps. Um, but
And
but
he's got your proficiency with words, too.
yes, exactly. Um, but again, it's this weird like lovable stupidity. Like, but it's not the stupidity like Zell. It's like this weird like a. And it's not even obliviousness. It's just this blithering stupidity with
He's
he knows what he wants to say, but he's just not all
he
there.
has he has this charm that he's not even aware of.
Mm.
He's got this innate ability to make people like him. And he's got so much personality.
Yeah.
And he just doesn't understand that he's an interesting person. He even thinks that he's a dumbass. But he's a really charming person. He
Yeah.
doesn't under he has no clue
And
that he has no clue that he's good looking
he,
and that he's got interesting things to say.
and
He's got a
a
he's
great
got a
limit
really
break.
good heart. He's got a really great heart. He's
Yeah.
very lovable.
Yeah.
Why do you think Rain kept him around?
Maybe she saw his movie and well actually no that happened afterwards, never mind, but
Yeah, that happened afterwards.
yeah,
I
but
mean, he is
even
a dork who can't string 3 words together sometimes, but he's a sweet little he's a sweet little doofus with a great ass.
I didn't say it, Leigh said it,
I told
but
you
she's
my
not
language
wrong.
gets I told you I get colorful sometimes.
Yeah, but again, like Laguna has this fucking like insane limit break. He's the only guy with the smarts to bring a gun other than Irvin, right? And
Yeah.
so in battle, unbeknownst to whomever, he's hanging off a wire which comes out of thin air, and he's just swinging and shooting, and it's like he just has this it factor. And they even
And then
like
he
the
caps
Shumi
it all
village,
off
yeah.
by throwing a grenade.
Yeah. So the Shumi village even mentioned it. They're like, he has this is just innate thing. We don't know what it's called. And I remember the line because we had the video the other day. It was charisma. Maybe
Mhm.
Squall should find some. Um,
Yeah.
you know, but
That's just it. He oozes charisma.
yeah. So even though Kiros and Ward, I mean, they might be lower in the totem pole than he is, and that's probably why they follow him. But it's still like under normal circumstances, these guys would not follow this guy.
Okay,
And yet,
Kiros
wow.
said it better. Like when Kiros tracks him down in Windhill, even Kiros is like, just life is boring without you for entertainment. That's exactly what he said. He had to go track Laguna down because his life sucked without him.
That's crazy. So Eleni, sweet kid. She
Oh
doesn't
my
get a
god.
lot after the fact, but those sequences that she does get are emblematic of both Laguna and Squall, and I do think she does have a place.
She totally has a place. She is the big sister that she is basically Squall's big sister. I mean, they weren't related by blood. Rain took her in after her own parents died. But, you know, Rain and Laguna were basically like brand new parents for her. She loved them to death. And losing them was very hard on her too, but she was there for Squall in a way that no one else was, because, he was just an innocent little baby when he lost his parents. You know, Rain died, but
Yeah.
he didn't even know about Laguna. Nobody told him about Laguna.
Yeah.
And, Squall was her last remaining tie to both Rain and Laguna
Mm.
until she was able to finally meet up with him again during the course of the game.
Ugh.
And that's why, that's why she stayed so attached to him. She played favorites among all the other kids in the orphanage. Like, they all looked up to her as a big sister, just the way Squall did, but she played favorites and paid more attention to Squall because she honestly, like, she was his last link to
Mm-hmm.
Rain and Laguna. And that's why Safer, like we were talking about Safer earlier, that's why he was so jealous of Squall, because Squall got all of her attention, almost all of it. She didn't
Yeah.
have as much attention left to spare for everybody else because she spent so much time paying attention to Squall.
Mm.
And then it was completely devastating when, for her own safety, they took her and put her on a ship of other kids.
Yep.
And the reason why they ended up not letting Squall go with her was because, they'd already had some foreshadowing that he was going to play a big role in what was going to happen in the
Mm.
future. So they were trying to groom him for what he was destined for. And honestly, like, if they had let him go with her, he wouldn't have turned out the way he did.
Yeah, then maybe we wouldn't have had a game. I don't know. Speaking of game, let's shift from the plot to the other big part. And this is, again, where a lot of the divisiveness of Final Fantasy comes in. The junction system. I don't hate it. I hate the fact that the magic is taken away from you as a last resort. For those who don't know, the junction system is you have to use your own stock of magic, so you can't use the magic you want, otherwise your stats go down. Then you have to draw the magic to get it.
It's not like that noticeable, though. And you have lots of magic refining abilities from your
Yes.
GFs. So if you do happen to use the magic that's junctioned, you can use your items to replace it.
Yeah. And the thing for me, and we'll kind of bounce around with the battle system while we're talking about it, is there is kind of this min-maxing going on because of the inherence of it. Like, you get a different type of magic, you want to use it in a junction and see what's better. What I ended up finding was just junctioning everything to strength made way more sense. Just what sucked was I was using magic-based characters like Selphie and Renoa, and then I realized, their magic kind of sucks. Like, I was doing like 1,000 damage with a really pumped up Selphie doing an Ultima spell when I could have just stabbed for like 9,000. I was like, oh, that's really disappointing. So,
Yeah.
but
I mean,
no, go
it
ahead.
gives you the freedom of trying to be magic reliant,
Yeah.
but you don't have to be. That's the beauty of the junction system, is you can literally focus on whatever stat you want to focus on.
Yeah, and the game being I think what it is was they have so much versatility in the system that it's not such a bad thing, and it does add to replayability. Like, the problem I find is, much like Materia, you do end up having characters that are all the same. Final Fantasy VI had the same problem, where at the end of the day, the characters are yours to mold, but you still have the versatility to create them in the way you want. I think the job system of 9 and 4 lend themselves better to, okay, we're stuck in this thing, we can't change a thing, you have to build it the way we build it. It's strict, but then okay, a white mage is this, a black mage is this. In 6 through 8, you're kind of like, well, why not just use Ultima every fucking turn, right? Because it's the best spell in the game. Or why not just use Squall to stab every fucking second? But, to your point, what if I want to use GFs all the time? What if I just want to summon characters? You can build them that way.
Mm-hmm.
I never used character abilities at all. You saw that. I barely used items to begin with. I never used recover, revive, blah, 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 blah. Like, you
And you
could.
totally could have.
Yes.
Like those abilities I think were created just so you wouldn't have to rely on using your other spells like Kiraga and Full Life and things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. And again, I'm coming from the perspective of I've played this, 20, 30 times, and I just default to whatever is the easiest strategy because fuck you, difficulty, I don't care. Which is why I had invincibility on all the time because I don't fucking care. But for somebody who doesn't, like, imagine a first playthrough and you're like, I don't understand this junction system, but I know the job system. And I'm like, I can build this character to be a black mage. I can this person to be a white mage or whatever, and then have the abilities of, because they have all the abilities there. It's like materia in 7. It's like if you want to build a knight or a paladin, you just put cover on, and then you put a lot of HP, and then you put some white spells. I think it's a little extra effort, but I believe what they were trying to go for was that versatility.
Yeah.
Rather than that strictness of, here's a job, here's all you can do with the job. So I'm partial to the job system. It just streamlines the thing. Maybe you're different.
Well, okay, I basically pick my favorite characters based on their personalities.
Yep.
So like if I like someone's personality, I'm more likely to want that person in my party.
Yes.
Regardless of their strengths and weaknesses. So what I'll end up doing is I'll end up like using the junction system to make that character a powerhouse instead of a weakling.
Yeah.
Like with Selfie, she's one of my favorite characters to use.
Yeah.
Her one of her strengths is in her limit break, She's got a couple of really great limit break attacks that you can find if you're willing to spend that much time cycling through her slots.
Which I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you can sit there and totally use you can give her the right junctions and make her completely impervious to elemental damage.
Yeah.
To where she absorbs it, so that whenever an enemy tries to hit her with some kind of elemental attack, she gets healed instead of taking damage.
Yeah.
You can junction something to her strength and make her a powerhouse with attacks. And you can junction something to her magic and make her a really good spellcaster too.
Yeah. Yeah. What I think I noticed using Renoa and Selfie was the versatility at play. They weren't like, say you just want pure damage. If in a perfect world you're doing pure damage, you do Squall, Irvin, Zell. That's it. Like, their limit breaks are multi-attack. You junction to attack. You just play that way. But it can be boring. And I do think what Renoa and Selfie did was kind of a safety valve where I had full cure at my disposal whenever I wanted it. I had Invincible Moon whenever I wanted it, or I could chuck a Holy War or just kill things outright. Not saying you can't die. I died to the Red Dragon because that breath attack is like 8k damage even at high vitality. But it's like outside of Marlboro, it's like I'm not fearing anything, right?
But you could have made Ruby Dragon weak.
Yes, and again, the level down thing.
Yeah, Tunberry has that amazing level up and level down thing.
Yeah.
So if you find an enemy is just giving you too hard a time, you can level it down.
Yeah. And again, if you're stuck in a way of doing things, experimentation does kind of take a lot of time. And to be fair, the way I was trying to present the game, if I was on a stream, would be different than, okay, we've got 20 or 30 minutes to do a video. We can't fuck around with the game system all that much unless I'm having time to do so. Which is funny because the only time I had to grind was in between our sessions. And I'm focusing on all the leveling up, and I already know what I'm going to do. Like, part of me would want to experiment and just use GFs all the time. But I also know that's not optimal. But dicking around with all the status effects and all the elemental junctions, like figuring out what enemies are weak to what, because I found out some of the characters were like susceptible to instant death. I never knew. Like the Grendel was susceptible to instant death. The T-Rexor was susceptible to instant death. I would not have known that if I didn't, I think you suggested to put that on there. I found that less of the characters that I would hope for were susceptible to instant death, but it still was like, I'm killing them outright. It doesn't matter. But what if I wanted to use blindness or silence or whatever, the old school method of debuffing a character down, like you saying, level them down, goes into the level scaling mechanic. Do you keep them lower level so that they're easier enemies, or do you power level? Because I had all the high weapons. I had all the high skills. Like, Ultimisha was a fucking joke, even at level 100. But it could have been any different way if she was level 25 or 30. So I don't know.
Yeah, it could have been a whole lot easier.
Yeah, I mean, do you like the enemy scaling idea, or?
Honestly, I don't.
Okay.
I mean, the enemy scaling was one of those things where I ended up avoiding a lot of fights just because I didn't want my characters to level up. And the way that they did the experience, it was 1,000 experience points to level up no matter what.
Yeah.
So as soon as you reached 1,000 experience points, you were leveling up again. And some of those enemies were giving you thousands of experience. So you were getting levels like out the ass just doing one little fight.
Yeah.
So it got to the point where I was just like, you know what, Tunberry, you are my new best friend.
Yeah, and then you find out you can't kill him with the generator like you can everything else. And by the way, speaking of the generator, might as well mention limit breaks this time. We haven't shown it yet, but there's an episode later by the time we're recording this. I did not know that an enemy used a generator on me. I forgot to junction stuff to Kyros and Ward, and Laguna was the only person in the battle. Laguna was there. He gets degenerated. Kyros gets degenerated. Ward dies. Phoenix revives him somehow. And then I had just enough HP to kill the thing outright, and I survived, and I was like, how the fuck did that happen? I've never seen anything like that outside of maybe a playthrough of Final Fantasy VI, where I almost died to Kefka, but I had one shot to go.
Was I paying attention to that?
You were, because this was the fight in the Esther thing. We were fighting the soldiers, and the weird creepy dude just used Degenerator, and then Phoenix showed up.
Oh, the Gesper.
Yeah, and the Phoenix showed up at the last possible second because it was the only time he did, and I'm like, no fucking way.
Yeah, why do you think it's so recommended that you get that thing's object? I think it's called a black hole.
Yeah. And to be fair, when I use Quistis, like, that is my main limit break. When I use her is just go to the islands closest to heaven and hell and just use the generator, and it's like, done, bye.
And the only thing that I ever used to do on the islands closest to heaven and hell is the draw points. If I went looking for enemies at all, it was to draw magic from and not to kill.
Yeah.
And I would do something like I'd put them to sleep, or like whatever enemies were susceptible to sleep, I would put them to sleep. I would silence them. I'd confuse them.
Yeah.
I would do things to keep them from attacking me, and then I would just sit there and draw magic like crazy. And then I would level them all the way down to level 1 before I killed them.
Yeah. If Final Fantasy VIII has taught me anything, it was something that I already knew. But Malboro is the nastiest fuck in Final Fantasy history. More so than Tonberry, more so than Behemoth, as nasty as they are. Malboro, when they proc him to just be a dick, like, even if you have the enemies at island closest to heaven and hell that can insta-kill you in one shot, like Ruby Dragon or T-Rex or whatever, fuck no. Having to deal with Malboro is the worst. And you heard it when we were doing that on recording. I was like, I'm fucking freaking out because I know I'm fucking dead. And I didn't die to him, but I'm like, no, I don't want to go. I want to go home.
I actually sat there and used Game Shark codes to have all the items so that I could give my GFs the ribbon ability.
I mean, I wish I had that, but again, it's just like every status.
You have a version where you can play Chocobo World. You could get ribbons from
Mm.
Chocobo World.
I wish I had that. God damn it. Um,
You can totally do it. You have access to it.
well, we might as well talk about that. Getting into side quests. Um, Chocobos were things we didn't do. So might as well
No,
talk
we
about
did.
the stuff we didn't do on camera. We didn't do Chocobo. We didn't do. I don't think we did the Obel Rocks or Obel Lake because I did that off
No,
camera.
you did
Um,
that off camera.
yeah,
You didn't even stream it to me so that I could help you with it.
yeah, I just did it on my own. We
Uh-huh.
but
You
the
didn't even know it existed until I told you about it.
nope shows what I know. um, but yeah, so about chocobos, they put so much effort into chocobos, and then it's like this is kind of like off the beaten path, right? Because you have the chocobo forest there, but what even is that game? It's kind of like half like puzzle, half Simon Says. It's kind of weird. I don't even remember.
But it's so cute. It's basically you have to play this game where you're like each one has a different theme. Like the first one, it's bowling. You have to
Oh,
get you have to get the little chickabos, as they're called, to arrange themselves in the way that where they're in a formation of bowling pins, and then have one of them go run through until they all disappear, and you're just left with that little one.
hmm,
And then as soon as that one is the only one out there, then the mom will show up.
yeah.
And that's the object of each chocobo forest, is to make it so where there's only one out there by itself, which makes the mom show up. And as soon as the mom shows up, then you can use your whistles to get the mom to find a hidden item for you. And if the mother chocobo finds the hidden items for you, then you don't ever have to play the mini games in there again.
Hmm.
They basically see you as one of them.
Okay. Let's see.
And it all leads up to when you find the final chocobo forest. It All the chocobos meet there and they do this little dance, and it's so goddamn adorable.
So I'm
Oh
probably gonna
my
have to
god,
YouTube it.
it's the cutest fucking thing you've ever seen.
Yeah, because don't you get to ride a chocobo after all this? Because I don't think I've
Yeah,
ever done that.
whenever you do one of the chocobo forests and you find the hidden item with your whistles, anytime in the future that you go back into that forest, you can literally just walk up to the chocobo and ride it out. So you can go into a forest that you've completed, you can get a chocobo and ride it around on the world map. It
Hmm.
can I think the chocobos can run through shallow water.
Hmm.
So like I don't think they can climb mountains,
Huh.
but they can, they can run around through the forests. They can basically run around like on the beaches and stuff. I think they can cross shallow water. I'm not positive anymore because it's been so long since I've played
Hmm.
and ridden a chocobo, but I think they can.
Trying to think here. Finding GFs. Um, I think it's nice that like you have the ability to get new GFs as boss fights. It does incentivize drawing. It's
Hmm.
weird that like the end of the game is like littered with like 5 or 6 different GFs at like all at once, and it's just like here's Tonberry, here's Cactuar, here's whatever, here's the, and it's like it's almost a bit too much.
And
Um,
if for some reason you miss out on getting one of them, you still have an opportunity in Ultimicia's castle to get them,
yeah. Um, so yeah, you
because
can draw them
the
and the bosses. Yeah.
bosses, yeah, her minions, the
Mm.
bosses that you fight in there, you just unlock the draw ability first after that first fight against, I think it's Sphinxar.
Yes, I believe that's
And
it.
if you unlock draw first, all the other bosses that you run into all have a GF if you hadn't drawn it from somewhere else.
And then I wonder why I went through all the trouble to get to Bahamut and whatever. But it turned out they were easy enough, so it's like,
Uh-huh.
Because I remember like telling you I was fretting about going to deep sea deposit the entire time, and it ended up being like a joke because we were so high level at the time. I was like, what was I so afraid
Yep.
of? I had Holy Wars. Like, well, yeah, you had Holy Wars. That's why it wasn't so difficult.
Yeah, you sacrificed your safer card and had Holy Wars.
Yeah. Um, I believe it was Gilgamesh that had it.
Oh yeah, whatever, whichever.
Yeah. Which
But
one of them? Um,
and you also one of the quests that you missed out on was completing your card collection by doing the Card Queen's
yeah,
quest.
you told me about that, and I was like, nope, I'm done.
Basically, all you had to do was lose a card to her and then go win it back from her kid and then go to whichever city she told you had the new card that was made based on the one you
Mm,
lost to her. Like if you lost, I think it was Kiros's card to her, it's yeah, then she would have Irvine's card
mm,
made. And that was the card that Flo in FH was supposed to have. But
okay.
she didn't have it until after you started that quest and
Yeah,
lost
because
Kiros's card to her.
and to be fair, I think what I try to tell people with these YouTube playthroughs is that I'm not trying to 100% them. I like on occasion I will, like East 8 I did, but I'm not trying to do every super boss. I'm not trying to do every single because you probably felt that by the end of that recording I was like, I just want to get this shit done. We're near the end. This is
Yeah,
gonna
you
be
are
it,
impatient to be done.
yeah. It's not that I don't want to show off every single thing. It's that I'm also like observant of the time it takes to do so, which is why I don't want to do like all the shit in Final Fantasy X because the stuff in Final Fantasy X is its own game outright, and I'm like,
Oh God, I
no,
know.
yeah, no. So,
Yeah.
so for those wondering about Final Fantasy VII, no, I am not doing the Ruby weapon or uh Emerald weapon because I can do it. I've seen it be done even fairly recently. I just don't have the patience. The
You
Chocobo,
know,
yeah. Oh, go ahead.
dude, if you have ever seen you remember Gao?
Uh,
He has some videos on his channel where he beat Emerald and Ruby weapon in like 2 minutes.
Jesus. Um,
Yeah, two
yeah.
minutes or less.
And then here I am just ignoring Omega Weapon. Is like, nope, nope, not doing it. Nope, don't care. I have the Holy Words. Don't care. I want this game over with. Because that episode took like 45 minutes just to beat the bosses. I was just like, nah. I have beaten Ozma. I have beaten the Ruby and Emerald weapons before. I've beaten Nemesis before. That was back when I was 17 years old. I have no patience for that shit. Not in like grown up land anymore. So bear that in mind. I'm not trying to be a completionist on my channel. I'm doing this because I enjoy these games and I want to show them off to the point that I can be enjoyed, but also there is that ingrained, I just want to get the shit done and move on sort of vibe near the end of disc. Like, not even when we were playing
Kind of.
disc 3, right? But
I mean,
still, it
it's not
happens.
even not. I mean, I'm not trying to say you should 100% the game, but seriously though, not showing off everything there is to show off can sometimes be kind of a cop out.
It can be. That is fair. But at the same time, it does lead to, okay, how many more episodes does it take to complete the thing to do that? And besides, I also had to be mindful of your time too, because if it's just
Well,
me,
yeah.
I'm doing it. If it's you, I always have to be like, okay, but now I'm having you on your schedule spend time to help me. It's kind of like, you can see why I'm even more mindful of not having an episode take an hour and a half. Barring the fact, oh, it's the finale, we have to go an hour and a half, that sort of thing. But
Yeah, that kind of. Yeah, I
yeah,
get it.
but
Um,
you know,
but still, like, even if you don't like complete it, you could still like just show it.
fair. Um, what did you think of Odin trying to be in every single fight?
Oh, geez, Odin cracks me up. Like, sometimes I would actually hold off on getting him just because he irritated me.
But yeah, we grabbed Odin. We can't talk side quests and not talk triple triad now, can we?
No, we sure can't.
I hate Same Plus, I hate random, but I love this fucking game so much.
Dude, you know what? You would have had an easier time with all your card quests if you hadn't mixed rules so much.
I didn't figure out how to do them until you told me about halfway through. And again, this was
You
something I
can
was doing.
literally sit there when it asks, when they're prompting you, like, oh, you know rules that we don't use here. Let's play a game using all these rules. You can literally say no until they stop asking you to mix rules.
Yeah, and then in we were trying to get the Eleni card, and I had to save in the room, and we kept trying to do it on camera, or we kept doing it off camera because we knew this would be a pain in the ass to do.
You were trying to, we were trying to get rid of something that was bad, and we ended up getting rid of plus.
Yeah, and it was like we still had the random card, so every time she tried to play me, she wouldn't play the Laguna card because she play some other stupid shit, and then she would give us like Turtopod cards or something dumb like that. I'm like, God damn it! It's bad enough you have every rule in the fucking game. Now you're giving me this, and then we try to get the Laguna card. You telling me like, dude, Laguna's gonna be easy. Just wait it out. And then Elemental. It's like the only rule was Elemental, and I was like, what?
Yeah, S-Star's rules were just elemental, and that's
I was just so like, ugh. But
yeah, because Lunar and S-Star were completely different card regions.
fair enough. But Triple Triad as a game in and of itself has taken on kind of a this is better than the actual game itself kind of vibe. I don't think I would go that far, but as far as like, oh god, I remember the completionist saying this. He had a skit in his Final Fantasy VIII review where, oh my god, you lost your job. How about you two play cards and make up? I was like, that's really what happens, is akin to nothing. You can talk to people you've never met or haven't met in 10 years. Do you want to play cards? Like, you go up into space to save Renoa's life, to figure out what the fuck's going on. You see Eleni for the first time since she leaves in Disc 2. Do you want to play cards? Like,
literally, her reaction to you card prompting her is, do you want to play cards now?
Yeah, because if you don't, you have her in your party and you can't get her card. That's the problem. So it's just like, well, that's... But
and up there in space, you have both her and Piet, he's got Alexander, she's got Laguna.
Yeah.
So that's 2 cards you have the opportunity to miss.
Yep.
That you wouldn't have the opportunity to get back until Disc 4, when you find the card queen.
Yeah.
At the escape pod's crash site.
Yeah. To me, I think like I get why Same Plus is a thing and why random is a thing. Square designed it so that the game wasn't just get your GFs and raffle stomp the game. But in so doing, and Same isn't so bad. It's Plus that I hate with a passion because you have to do math. Even basic math, you have to math 2 steps ahead like you're playing chess. Totally valid, but I don't want to think that hard. I just want to play cards. And again, however they developed Triple Triad, they thought this stuff out so well that every single enemy, boss, character, they have a card. Akin to nothing, they have a card. And everybody can play it. I'm like, wow. How is this not as big as Blitzball? Because in Final Fantasy... Oh, go ahead.
The person who was in charge of designing the mini game Triple Triad was inspired by games like Magic the Gathering.
That makes sense.
He wanted to put something like that in Final Fantasy, something that appealed to everybody.
Yeah. And it's weird because Final Fantasy X, and I'll bring this as an example, like everybody plays Blitzball because everybody in the world plays soccer. And Yuna goes on and says Blitzball is really the only entertainment we have. Triple Triad doesn't go that far. Like Triple Triad isn't like a league, isn't like a sport, isn't like a no, but everybody plays it. Everybody's got cards. Freaking Adia, you save her life at the end of Disc 2. She's like, I'll play cards with you. Like, I just
Oh
met
yeah.
you. You can play Sid, even though he's a fucking asshole and he's a dork. And it's like, well, okay, I've got a card you might like. It's like,
dork, yes. Asshole, no.
yeah, you're right. And because we're talking about Sid, I have to go Norg. Had to throw that back in, but yes, my throat did fucking die. If you're curious, that was 5 minutes of recording, and I regret doing it, but I don't regret having it on tape. Do we even have tape anymore? Anyway, but that's part of the fun, right? But Triple Triad is great. It has some foibles, but when you consider the difference between that and Tetramaster, which is just RNG says I win, RNG says I will lose, RNG says you suck. Triple Triad's nicer.
Actually, dude, I've met people who think that Tetramaster is way better, and I'm just like,
they're wrong.
I'm just like, what the hell kind of sick, sad world do you live in?
Yes, I totally understand where if you can ruffle stomp Triple Triad because you've manipulated the rules, that's fine. That's what I would personally do, even though I sucked at getting rid of rules, as Leigh mentioned. But Square was nice enough to develop the game to where even the easiest characters in the game can still whoop your ass because you're not paying attention. So...
Oh, and if you didn't think the rules were challenging enough, if you found the card queen in one of the towns you're visiting, you can pay her to introduce a new rule to that area.
Yeah, so there is so much versatility that, like, I love myself some Blitzball, but it's not that complicated. Triple Triad, for a minigame, has a lot of complex stuff. And it doesn't, like, I think Final Fantasy VIII doesn't do side quests the way Final Fantasy VII did. Final Fantasy VII is littered with stupid side quests that some work, some don't. It's like, hey, let's just have CPR for a little girl. I'm like, why is that a minigame? Like, why am I playing a game about a Mog in a visual novel? Like, some of them are akin to nothing just because they're ideas. Final Fantasy VIII is like 4 or 5 side quests that don't always add up to mean something, but when they work, my God, do they work. And then you go into the islands closest to heaven and hell, and then you regret your decision. But what I will say, akin to anything else, I always maintain that the best things about Final Fantasy VIII was its soundtrack, visuals, and sound design, just across the board. Just even to this day, some of the best music that Uematsu's ever done, some of the best visuals because it doesn't look like Lego blocks anymore. And we were playing the remaster, so bear that in mind. We weren't playing the weird shuffly faces look. We were doing Final Fantasy VIII remastered. They look like actual people. But even in the old school days, they looked like people. It was mind-boggling.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the way we were playing it, we couldn't just revel in the music, but I was still thinking, like, oh my God, this is so good. And then when we're playing it back, we can actually listen to the music. I'm like, yay! I'm in love with the soundtrack.
I can't wait until you upload the episode on the Ragnarok with the Eyes on Me playing.
I know, and I'll probably get demonetized because that exists. But I don't get demonetized, so it doesn't matter.
But, like, during the whole time that we were reading out that scene, which even though it was on auto scroll, it wasn't moving by so slowly that we couldn't read it.
Which I was thankful for.
I was just like, I want to hear the fucking song and I can't.
I know. So for those unaware, we found a way to do it so that we wouldn't double up the audio and hear an echo while Leigh was trying to speak. So we had to do it where the game audio and all the sound effects and shit were turned off. So we just had to visualize that we were playing the game as it was. But just like she said, Ragnarok is one. The spot in the missile base underneath the strata was another, where you turn on the thing and it turns into a fucking, mobile garden base. But the castle, the goddamn castle,
music.
I was...
The music in that game just blew me away.
Yes.
So good.
And I have said that Uematsu is like everybody has a favorite, and Uematsu's long not gone, but he's long since moved on to freelancing because he's what 60, 65 at this point. Fair play, but he did 1 through 9 by himself, and 10 he had like the guy who ended up doing 13 and 7R, and then a couple other people, so he kind of like bounced it, but still it's technically his soundtrack. So it's like you're telling me he has this like 10 or 15 year like career of like, oh, pick a soundtrack, it's probably really freaking good. And I'm like, there's only like 2 or 3 times in the entire like, and not even Final Fantasy VIII, I'm just thinking like a couple of songs in Final Fantasy V that are like, I don't like this.
And I think while he was doing 10, with his team,
Yeah.
he actually went and moved to Hawaii to
Wow.
work on it.
That's
Like,
crazy.
that's some fucking dedication.
Yeah.
They were trying to establish operations in the US,
Mm.
and they had a place set up in Hawaii, and he actually went and moved to Hawaii for like an entire year and something
God.
just to work on the audio for that game.
Yeah, and he the thing is that Final Fantasy 9 and 10 were kind of released around like the same year in change, right? So it's almost like a Majora's Mask situation where they had to redo. So he was doing 9 and 10 almost at the same time, which is probably why he had other people doing on 10, but still, like, God, that is a lot of fucking work. And the fact that those soundtracks are so good, and again, talking about 8, very militaristic, very futuristic, very heavy. I'm into the heavy stuff, metal, right? And there wasn't
It's
like,
mostly because of the sounds that they produced were because of the story they were working with.
yes. And to be
And the
fair,
characters were very military driven.
Mhm. Yeah, and 7, the problem I have with 7 is the sound chip and whatever, they weren't trying to do orchestral. When 8 hits, when Liberi Fatali hits, you're just like, what is a fucking orchestra doing in my Final Fantasy game? It's like the metal song in Otherworld in 10. It's like, what is a metal song doing in my Final Fantasy game? I don't care, but I love it. So
Oh, good.
yeah, there's
No.
just so much good stuff. Liberi Fatali, Maybe I'm a Lion, the Extreme at the end, like all of the Ultimecia stuff. Say what you will about Ultimecia as a character, the fucking soundtrack revolving around her is just like 4 or 5 songs of just
And each of the characters' individual theme pieces too, like
yes,
they're beautiful.
yeah. You get Eyes on Me, as you said. You have a version of Eyes on Me called Roses and Wine, which is the Julia scene, or other stuff. You've got oh god, Fisherman's Horizon, like so subtle but
Yeah,
really good.
Fisherman's Horizon, one of the pieces of music that you can put together is a slow dance version instrumental of Eyes on Me.
Mm.
It makes for a pretty not satisfying scene between Squall and Renoa to play it, but some people actually go the route of doing that scene just because of the music.
Yeah, and then most of the time I play it where I just have Quistis doing tap dancing because she's wearing boots. It just makes sense. Um,
I
but
usually have Irvine being the one doing the tap dancing
yeah, because he's
because
a cowboy.
he's wearing boots and he's ridiculous anyway.
Yeah, it's like Kid Rock trying to do a sappy love song. It's like,
I
does this?
usually give I usually give Quistis the violin
Yeah, but
and Selfie the flute.
yeah, but again, you can see where this music adds so much to a game, and the
Hmm.
militaristic aspect, as you mentioned, is very present. A lot of drums, a lot of just stiff like orchestral beats, and then you get these weird like softer mystical weird ass tones like Liberi Fatali or the
Or
Thriller
like
Parade, uh,
or like just the light-hearted, calming garden music.
yes.
Even that, like the music inside your main garden throughout the beginning of the game, it's really pretty.
Yeah, and then Galbadia Garden is like the Turks theme, but way darker, you know. Um,
Yeah.
so you can see why I'm gushing about something that even though I've had issues with, say, the plot or some of the gameplay, I'm sitting here just in awe of. We've talked about what 20 different songs just off the cuff, and I'm like, that's not even all of them. I'm just sitting there, Man with a Machine Gun. How do I fucking forget Man with a Machine Gun? Because everybody's gonna mention it if I don't remember it. But yes, awesome theme. And I waited until like the bitter end to talk about Man with a Machine Gun, even though that's the one everybody remembers. But it's like, even that, it's just like, God, so good. So yes.
And one of the side quests that you forgot to talk about, I remember in one of your videos you had said something like you weren't sure what the purpose of them was, and then I left a comment explaining what the purpose of.
Which one? It wasn't the Shumi
It was
quest.
collecting the Timber Maniacs magazine.
Oh yeah, it was to help with Selfie's like weird thing in the garden because she has a like catalog garden thing. Because
Selfie at one point suggests keeping a diary, like when they start talking about all the memory stuff.
Yeah.
With the GFs, like what we talked about earlier, how even though that was kind of contrived and stupid,
yeah,
uh,
they do. I think
it's a thing. So
yeah,
however we feel about it, they made it a thing. So she suggests keeping a diary of the important things so that they don't ever forget them.
yeah.
And one of the things that you can do, Selfie took she took her page for the garden festival and turned it into this whole adorable flowery like website looking thing. It's got her diary, it's got information about the garden festival, it's got a comments section. It's just really cute to look at. And if you read her diary section, she's also got a section about the Timber Maniacs magazines that you guys find in all the different towns you visit.
So that's why you
that's
impressed upon me to find them all.
Yeah, because you get background from them.
And then I didn't even look.
She will sit there and she has this whole thing that she calls Sir Laguna's page.
Oh yeah, I think I do vaguely remember that.
It's where she talks about all his Timber Maniacs articles. Because in each magazine that you find, there's an article that he has written about some place that he's visited. And it gives a little bit more insight into Laguna himself. So some of the information that you don't have comes from reading her page about him.
Yeah. Today I fell off a cliff and went into the Shumi village. Today I fell off a cliff and went into Windhill. Today I fell off a cliff and went into Dilling City. It turns out I was just passed out in a bar.
But yeah, like the dream sequences where you take over as Laguna, Kiros, and Ward, they have a huge impact on her. She has this gigantic love for Sir Laguna.
Because she doesn't think he dresses like a moron.
Hey, she thinks he's pretty cool.
I mean, he is.
But I just, oh my God, when the first dream sequence, Squall wakes up and he's like, I had a dream too, but it wasn't good.
Yeah.
I dreamed I was a moron. Yeah. I was laughing my ass off over that one. It was one of the funniest, it was literally one of the funniest lines I'd ever read in a video game up to that point. I'm just like, I dreamt I was a moron. And I'm like, well, why don't you tell me how you really feel, Squall?
Yeah, or the time you're talking about Renoa and her paint job on that car, of the train car.
Oh my God, they really ripped into her on that one.
And Squall is just like, yeah, it kind of does.
He's like, it is really bad. And Selfie is just talking about how it's like the ugliest thing she's ever seen.
I'm like, Renoa's a better artist than I'll ever be.
Renault was like, I made it ugly on purpose. It's supposed to symbolize my hate of Vinzer Delling. And Selfie's like, well, you must hate him a lot because that is like the ugliest thing I've ever seen.
What was the oh, I remember there was the line where, because I like Selfie a lot, but she sometimes runs her mouth and is a bit of a bitch. The time in Timber where, apropos of nothing, the girl who's a resistance member is saying this mother apparently stopped a bunch of soldiers with her strength, cooking, and beauty, and she's like, well, the cooking or the beauty must have made her a legend. I'm like,
No, the
Ew.
line okay, the girl was talking about how the legend goes that her mother stopped a whole troop with her strength, her cooking, and her beauty. And Selfie says, "Yeah, the beauty part sure makes it sound like a legend."
And I'm like, Selfie's cute, and I'm
Selfie
just
is the original savage.
yes, and I'm just sitting there going, wow. I'm like,
Oh my god, she is cute, but she got her savage side
yeah,
going.
and I'm just sitting there going, wow. And I'm like, even though I like her a lot, I'm just like, that is a dick
Hmm,
move.
that was a burn right there. I'm like,
uh,
I hope she remembered to bring the burn cream.
yeah, or just have more gasoline because you'll blow it to smithereens. Um, but thinking back on everything we've talked about, we're getting towards the end here. You did mention the orphanage as, or not even the orphanage, it was the GFs being the reason as to the negatives. Was there anything else in Final Fantasy VIII that you can kind of just sit there and go, I'm not really a fan of that?
Um, mm,
She's thinking.
yeah, I'm thinking. Give me a minute. I'll get there eventually.
No, but
Honestly, no, not really. I loved the dynamic between Safer and his two best friends.
oh yes,
Absolutely loved their dynamic, and
rage.
Fujin me up.
You know, I,
Fujin
I,
is the best.
yes, I will say this. I wish we had more Fujin because I wanted more one line or one word liners. Because
And what really gets you is she's not actually screaming these words. She's just saying them very sternly because she's a she's not soft spoken, but she's a firm believer in saying everything in as few words as possible.
and then she gets the
So
line.
then
Then she gets
and then
her
at
own
the
monologue.
end and then at the end, yeah, she actually does break her own character and have this moment where she actually just starts talking, and you're like, "Where the hell did that come
I'm
from?"
like, can I just have her in my party? I'll take her. I'm like,
Fujin has got like in that one moment, you see this depth that wasn't there that was only hinted at,
yeah.
but that you actually see just how much she likes her friends,
Hmm.
like how devoted she was to Safer. That
Yeah.
she and Regin stuck with him through thick and thin, doing this stuff that they did not believe in doing at all. They knew what they were doing was wrong. But they
Yes.
were doing it because they were his posse and they
Hmm.
wanted to stick with him when no one else would. And then finally he went too far for even them, and they were just like, "We love you, but we can't do this anymore."
We can only rely on Squall, and that's a fucking shame. I'm like, their words, not mine, but I totally believe it. It's like the fact that we have to believe in Squall is a fucking shame. Shame
I
on you. And they just walked
didn't
away.
say she didn't say that. She said was, we've gone as far as we can,
Mm,
and now we have to leave it up to Squall to fix this because
yeah.
we just can't fix it.
Yeah, so you're saying you would have liked a little bit more. I mean, as good as that scene was, it kind of felt like the one or two scenes we had with them in Balam Hotel and then this one, there's still more they could have done to really explain
Was
that relationship.
way more that, like, oh my god, in the end when or not even the end, in the beginning, when they're coming back from the field exam and she's like, in her one word way, she's asking him how it went, and he's just like, "Man, all they did was get in my way." And I'm just, when I did my playthrough, there's actually a clip, someone clipped me saying it. I'm like, "Fuck you, asshole! All you did was run off and get us in trouble." And I'm just like, that's just how they were,
Hmm.
and like some more of those moments would have been nice
Yeah. Um,
because they had such a great dynamic between the three of
yeah.
them.
I think for me, and that's where most of my negatives apply, is a lot of the focus is solely on Squall and Renoa, that you don't get you get some, but you don't get a lot of these characters, because Squall, Renoa, and Laguna to most extent take the brunt of the gameplay, which is fair. It's storytelling, right? But
Yeah.
you don't get that attachment for
You don't get to, like, especially with Irvine, he really got the short end of the stick.
yeah, and it's not helped by the fact he's kind of faking his whole shtick anyway.
Yeah, he's definitely putting up a front of being this like super cool ladies man and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
The lone sharpshooter doing his having to be a tragic figure and so romantic and come on ladies date me, and it's just, oh my god.
Yeah, and like a lot of the stuff I have with Squall and Renoa, or the characters, or even the gameplay, is execution based, because there are kernels of good ideas in there. I think if you're a big believer in exploration and experimentation, this is a good game to sink your teeth into and try different playthroughs on. But in the context of trying to min-max to beat the game, you're also I don't want to do it because I got a thing that works. But the whole enemy scaling thing is well, I don't want to do that because I don't want to over level and make this harder on me, but I also don't want to, because I'm sitting there and to me, I don't do random encounters anyway, just because I don't. The amount of episodes I did where I didn't fight a damn thing, and, Final Fantasy IX's the same way. Final Fantasy VII's totally going to be the same way. I don't hate the battles. I hate the fact that I'm forced into it, and the game even rewards you for not fighting. The enemy scaling thing is weird. I'm it's a cool idea, but the execution of every little bit and piece of Final Fantasy VIII is I'm right at the edge of loving it, but I veer back because I know it's just not all there. I think 9 and 10, again, we're comparing things that came 2 games later, but it's still to be fair, Final Fantasy VI isn't well put together either. I will wholly admit I love Final Fantasy VI because of the story and the characters, not because of the gameplay, as fun as it is. But about the positives of Final Fantasy VIII, there is a lot. There's a lot. I've said as much. The music and the visuals are amazing. They're just amazing. But it's also what it could have been versus what it is. And I just wonder what could have been, because they spent a good couple of years building this game. So it's not like they didn't waste their time. There's a lot of love that put into this game, don't get me wrong. But I wonder, and I don't think that's fair either, to just say what could have been versus what it is. What it is energetic. Far be it from me to say oh my god, the new Final Fantasies don't have energy. They feel like assembly line games on a production line. This feels like we had this thing, a fucking pot of a million different ideas, and almost all of them came in. That was something that you don't get anymore, is almost every single idea, they at least put their damned best in. It was a mess, but Triple Triad was a success in most cases. The music and sound design is fantastic, one of the best in the franchise, which is saying a lot, as we talked about. Laguna and Selphie, A+. I love them to death. They are great. And you like Squall and Renoa a lot more than I do, so I would imagine,
at some point, if you pay attention to what's going on in the background, Irvine has got the hugest crush on Selphie. He really does. And one of the things that he's doing throughout the game is trying to make a move on her.
And I think it's one of those subtle things where she's into him, but not that into him, but she does get into him. But
it's really subtle at first. After he hits on her that first time in the train, she's like, why is my heart beating so fast?
Yeah, so if they made a sequel to this, they'd end up together like Lulu and Waka. I'm I guess. I
Like,
mean,
if you notice during the ending movie when he looks like he's flirting with another girl, she gets mad at him.
yeah, I was like, you fucking asshole. I'm
And she
right
takes
here.
and then she takes his hat.
Yeah, and I'm like, Selfie's the
It's so
best,
cute.
dude. You
Holy,
just suck.
she looked better in his hat than he did.
Yeah, so the
Oh
selfie
my
bombing
god, it was
mission,
adorable.
or the missile base, like I didn't like all that complaining I did about the desert prison, and I'm sitting here going, just wait, I'll get to the good part of the game. I'll get to the good part of the game. I'm sitting here just going like, I'm in my happy place. And then I'm watching Selfie's interactions and the way you're, doing her character dialogue. It's just like, this is bliss. I love this so much. It's so stupid, but I love it. Because you get that dynamic of Squall's been this way for so long. It's weird having somebody else with this such a bubbly personality blowing things to smithereens. Or,
I really tried to convey her bubbliness.
yeah, and it works because every time you think something dumb's gonna happen, she's just sitting there going, "Nope, I'm in a happy place. Let's just have fun." But she does get her moments of being, very emotional. The Trabia Garden thing. It's like,
Oh yeah.
you get to see things about her. The missile base. You're just like, there is a character there that they don't explore, but when they do, because again, not everybody kind of gets that. Quistis kind of gets at the beginning and then kind of just drifts off. Selfie throughout the game kind of gets bits and pieces. Irvine and Zell kind of get bits and pieces. So it's not like they're terrible characters. I just don't think they're fully fleshed out because,
One of the funniest scenes ever is if you take Selfie with you into Balam when
oh,
it's occupied by Rajin, Fujin, and the Galvanian army. Like when Zell finally agrees to let you guys use his room as a resting place because the
yeah.
inn is completely locked off. It's hilarious when you take Selfie in there with you. She'll like literally, she likes to flop down on beds as you
Mm-hmm.
saw in Denver.
Yeah.
So she flops down on his bed and he gets mad at her and she's just like, "You should feel lucky that you've got a cute girl on your bed."
Yeah, and it's just like, little does he know that the girl with pigtails does have a crush on him that we never explain because I'm too lazy.
But
But
yeah, we didn't that was one thing that you didn't really go into because we didn't go into the library that much either.
yeah, and to be fair, I do think the side questing is there, but it's also not so obtuse that. How do I explain this? Like, if you want to do all the side quests, like we didn't have to do Odin, right? We didn't have to do Tonberry. We don't have to do Deep Sea Deposit,
And
islands closest to heaven and hell.
some of those side quests are there to like either help build up some of the lore of the world you're in
Mm,
or help fill in some of the blanks on the characters.
right, and to me, I think because I'm so used to games telling me things now in my face, like think of it like Final Fantasy 13, where a lot of their story was kind of sitting in these like monologues and dialogue boxes and things in the menus, and I'm sitting there
I
going,
never
it's like,
got to experience that.
yeah, so to me, this is like a different way of doing that. This is, you don't need to know this information for the plot to work, but it's there to be had. And I think, as I've said before, I still think disc 3 is a pain in the ass, but they do
But
try to explain it way better than I remember it doing so.
mhm. And if you take the time to actually do that exploring, the information that you find helps make it work even better.
Yeah.
Like
So
some of those things that you had said that you didn't like about the story and some of the gaps in it, some of those gaps are filled in just by doing world exploration.
right. And again, that's down to different play styles and different beliefs, and like, if we had all the time in the world to do every episode, like a podcast that's gone almost 2 hours, like, sure, I'd be like, yeah, let's do this thing and do this thing and find every little nook and burps for some reason, nook and cranny, as I was trying to say.
Cool.
But
Did
yes,
you ever did you ever do the quest to get the poo poo card? The little alien?
I saw the alien. You remember when I was leveling up in the Cactuar desert? I
Hmm.
saw the UFO. I know that you can do that. You can get a poo poo card. You have to do like 5 different spots, and
There
you go to
are
Balam Garden and whatever.
hmm
So I have
basically
done that.
what you do is you go to certain spots on the map and get into a fight, and in that fight, you'll end up just seeing a UFO fly across carrying something.
Yeah.
Like when you get into a fight outside of Windhill, you see a UFO carrying a cow.
No.
It's fucking fun. Or like in the desert, the Cactar Desert,
Yeah, that was the
um,
one I got.
you find the UFO is carrying a cactus.
Mhm.
And then eventually, after you've had all the UFO encounters, you go back to the crater where Balam Garden used to be,
Mm.
and you go to the crater and you get into a battle, and I use that term loosely, with the little alien himself. His little spaceship crashed, and he's come out of the wreckage, and you just give him elixirs, and if you heal him and give him the 5 elixirs that he wants, you get like a crap ton of AP, I think, and you
Jeez.
get his card, and it's the only way to get his card in the game.
Yeah. So again, I think what is there is they didn't like leave everything to chance. This wasn't like something they forgot and it became a plot hole. I noticed things where
And it's
all of
hinted at in one of the occult fan magazines.
yeah, so they have those little things. How you get Doom Train is you read those occult magazines. So every like I've said before that Final Fantasy X is kind of the best at like telling you every single thing and it will pay off later. Final Fantasy VIII does the same thing. It's just not as readily apparent because of the way it's designed is a little more, PSX era experimentation rather than we're going to show you every little detail. Um,
A
so
lot of it is a lot of it is you have to kind of figure out how to read between the lines.
yeah, and and as a way of getting to the end here, I hope that we've shown that there are two sides of this coin. Like Final Fantasy VIII, like 2 was considered really fucking bad and nobody likes it outside of some people that have played it and like it later. Final Fantasy VIII after Final Fantasy VII was universally successful. Final Fantasy VIII is kind of and even now it's still kind of like I remember a Reddit post. They were doing votes for Final Fantasies like through the entire franchises. What is your favorite Final Fantasy, or what is the best one? Favorite, best being whatever. 6, 7, 9, and 10, far and away. 8 was kind of down halfway. So you see where 8 is kind of like a U curve, like down the bottom, and it's like not the worst, but and that's my interpretation of it. I don't hate Final Fantasy VIII. I see a lot of like energy and enthusiasm for a lot of weird shit that the more I play games now, I'm like, I don't want the weirdness, but I can appreciate the weirdness because it's there. But having somebody to bounce this off of, you know a hell of a lot more about Final Fantasy VIII than I do. You understand the context a lot more, which I hope it comes across and came across when we played this was I don't hate it, but I like it more, but not enough to like have it jump my favorites. But I understand it more now that I've seen your side of the story. And I do think I got that out of doing this.
Well, then I think I did my job.
But again, you said you've invested tons into this, and
Oh yeah.
you told me stuff I didn't know. And again, I'm not out there learning every single little nuance. I didn't even know about the
Hell,
Hawaii
even
thing you told me about. Um,
this morning, hell, I learned something new this morning.
yeah, what it was
It
Renoa,
was Nomura, the guy who actually designed Renoa's character concept.
Mr. Belts himself.
He when he was coming up with her character design, he he had noticed that, they had made all these advances in the PlayStation's FMV technology. And his worry was that everybody would just go overboard making their characters like really stunningly beautiful and then have them
Hmm.
be like completely shallow and empty personalities. So to try to help combat that, he wanted to make her character design not stunningly beautiful, just more on the
Okay.
cute side. So he designed her to be cute, but not gorgeous.
Okay, so instead of
And
Julia being a not like Laguna's 10, Renoa is
uh-huh,
just kind of like she's
she's a
cute.
solid 8.
Yeah. I mean, yeah,
And
I could see
she
that.
and like he made notes about what her mannerisms should be, and he got feedback from the women on the team about her outfit and ended up designing a more realistic outfit for her.
I mean,
Something. And I mean, like, I can't really say that that freaking long trailing sweater vest thing is more realistic, but it's a better choice than what he had originally designed, I think.
yeah, I would imagine she would have been in stockings and belts all the way up to it would be those leather.
Well, like the women pointed out, it's really hard to fight when you're in a mini skirt.
Yeah, and then he ends up designing Lulu somehow. So what do we know?
Oh my god, like really. But
Yeah.
and then like in the end, like he actually said that the reason why he didn't include her in the lineup for Kingdom Hearts was because he didn't have a clear enough understanding of her personality.
And again,
Like
it's
he
kind of
designed her he designed her character appearance, but he didn't have a real clear understanding of her personality at that point.
I mean, that's kind of
So
weird
he
because
left
that's like
her out of, but he put references to her in Leon's outfit.
yeah, so it's weird because Renoa does still come across as a character.
And
I
Squall himself, his original character design had longer hair. He was actually based on River Phoenix.
okay, that's I mean to each their own. I suppose I can.
They wanted somebody that was visually appealing and had, mass appeal.
Yeah, so they give him a big scar in his face. That's gonna work.
Yeah, but he was still, in spite of the scar, he was still very pretty.
Yes, he's the most handsome guy here.
And like that when they were getting ready to include him in Kingdom Hearts, they went back. Like you notice his hair was longer.
Hmm.
That's actually part of his original character design was that longer hair.
I did not even notice any of that. Shows what I know.
They
So
when they were putting when they were getting ready to put him in Kingdom Hearts, they went back to the original character sketches that Nomura had did for him
hmm.
that were more based on River Phoenix.
Well, and to be fair, he was the lead designer at the time and lead director as opposed to just
Mhm.
okay, I'm creating for.
Well, at the time that they were doing Final Fantasy VIII, he listened to feedback about making him a little bit less feminine looking and more masculine looking. Giving him shorter hair, giving him slightly tougher clothes, things like that.
Leather jacket
And
with the boa in it. That'll be perfect.
hey,
I mean,
he
I
had
liked I like the jacket. I'm just making a joke.
oh, I know. If his boots had had the fur, you could have made the apple bottom jeans boots with the fur joke. It would have been great.
Yes, but to be fair, the design of the game is very muted and very grounded. For Final Fantasy, that's an accomplishment.
And they
For a
were they were going for more realistic with their character designs
yeah,
because he had the capability now to do it.
yeah, and that's what Final Fantasy VIII is. For all its weird spacey orphanages and space witches and time compression and weirdness, there is a sense of grounding. There is a
Hmm.
sense of grounded energy because it is a very militaristic. There is a lot of stuff to be had. There are a lot of character moments to be had. I do think a lot of it gets drowned out because there's a lot of white noise. At the end of the day, it is a love story. It is a military story. It is a story about characters finding their place in the world. And something you mentioned that I still kind of refuse to accept is the teenager aspect of it, because like early on, Final Fantasy characters were mid-20s, not early 30s, but mid-20s, right? They started slowly going to mid-teenagers because that was their audience. It does have an impact because you're basically creating child soldiers at this point, which is really fucked up to think about.
Oh, also, Sid and Adia didn't really, like, I think at some point, because Adia had the encounter with Squall in the past, she had that encounter with future Squall, and she knew that when he grew up, he would be this tough character. And he's the one who planted the ideas for Seed and Garden in her head. Planted, get it?
Yeah. oh God.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
It took me a second. Ugh.
I punned.
Yeah, you waited until the end of the video to just stab me with that pun knife. I was just, ah, damn it.
Hey, I had to throw one in there.
I guess.
It was subtle, and it was good.
Yeah. Well, like I said.
I know, you hate.
Yes, I hate them with a passion.
But, the fact that they were all teenagers kind of, in a way, it kind of worked to their advantage because they were young and full of emotions and togetherness and friendship and all of that. And it's what drove the plot.
Yeah. And I will give it this. I think if they were older, it probably wouldn't work as well. Because there is a game like Persona 3 where they're technically the same age as the people in Final Fantasy VIII, but they feel more like college students. And there is a big difference. It's a sort of like pseudo freedom. These characters are too young to know what absolute freedom is because they're not the 18 to 20 to 22. You have your first taste of freedom. You have your first taste of responsibility.
Yeah.
These characters are thrust into responsibility, in Squall's case, absolutely against their will. Some of them want it, but they don't know how to take it. And they do explore that. And I will give Final Fantasy VIII that much, is you're exploring how different teenagers handle responsibility. And some of them, Squall and Cypher, do not handle it very well. Squall does eventually.
Squall handles it wonderfully once he gets used to that mantle being thrust on him.
Yes, but when he did not want it.
No, he didn't want it, and he resisted it. But when he finally did start opening up to everybody, it started to feel more natural to him, and he was able to handle being in charge.
Yeah. So again, I think Final Fantasy VIII is emblematic of its story, is a series of like weird fuck ups, but they're good natured and they're designed really well. Like I've turned a corner. I'm not going to say I like this any better or worse. I think I understand Final Fantasy VIII more because of this context. Because that was what I felt was missing, was that context of seeing the other side of things. Accepting that this is really fucked up and this is what teenagers do. They fuck up a lot of shit because they're dumb, because they don't have the experience that a 35-year-old person would,
Exactly. And like I said, the context is there. You just have to be able to see it.
Yeah.
And a lot of seeing it is being able to relate to these characters.
As opposed to being told everything, which, to be fair, if that's your style of storytelling, whether it's ingrained in how games have been lately or how games, like Zelda, for instance, you're not going to know where the fuck to go in Zelda, but some people love that kind of exploration. Me, I like being told where to go, what to do, how to do a thing, because that's what I'm used to. But if you're looking for a game where you have 50 million different things you can do at any given time, but you're still given the bare bones idea, well, you still have to do this to succeed, Final Fantasy's not holding your hand, It's not going to hold your hand, and you're either along for the ride or you're going to hate it. but I can at least respect the attempt because everything about it is from a labor of love. And I do think anything that I've said, Final Fantasy VIII is a love story, gameplay, and story-wise, and character-wise. And I'm not always into that, but I think you have definitely shown me there is something to see if you're willing to look for it. You just have to look kind of deep to get it.
And you have to keep an open mind while you're looking.
Yes, that's important. So yes, as an end here, keep an open mind. If you've never played Final Fantasy, if you've ever seen it for the first time by watching my shit, God forbid, because I don't know why you'd be watching me as opposed to playing it yourself, but still, have an open mind. It may not be the most transcendent experience in the world, but there are people like Leigh out there who do really, really respond to this. There is another streamer who's been playing this very, very recently who feels the same way she does. There are lots of people who feel the same way I do. I think it's just important that, like, Final Fantasy exists in this world where we can like different games in the franchise and not, like, hate them just because they exist. So I love Final Fantasy VIII to a point. I love it a little bit more now that I've played it with somebody else who does love it more than I do. And hopefully, when we do Final Fantasy VII, that'll come across as well. Because, yes, we are doing Final Fantasy VII, and we're probably going to enjoy it a lot, because I love Final Fantasy VII. But
God, I love that game.
yes, but as a finale, as usual, Leigh, if you'd like to talk about anything you'd like to do. I think you also have not your page, but an Etsy page as well. So you do have a couple of things you can wrap right now.
Yes. My fiance and I have an Etsy store called Sigma Den Creations, where he's created some LGBTQ friendly t-shirts that have this really adorable playing card motif, and I'm starting to design earrings for the store. So basically, like, anything that I make will be available on request, because I don't know what you want unless I start, like, I've got some pictures ready for him to post. I'm just waiting for him to post them. And if we start getting orders, I'll make more of them. Like, I've made a few of each one so far, but when we start actually getting orders for them, I'll start making more. But I'll make sure he's got the link. The store page should be linked in the description for this video. And always, I welcome anybody who comes to my Twitch streams when I am able to find the time to stream. My streaming schedule is non-existent right now. It's very erratic, but I do like to work streams in at least once or twice a week as I can, because I do have a slightly chaotic home life. And it takes over sometimes. But I like to stream anything from, I sometimes play the occasional RPG. Sometimes I play survival horror. Lately I've been playing more laid back, open-ended things like Animal Crossing, The Sims, Stardew Valley, things like that. Just things that I can relax to and chill out and chat with everybody while I play.
Yes, and you've, thankfully for me, found a lot of time to devote to the Final Fantasy games. And I definitely do appreciate it. Even though sometimes our opinions don't always mesh, I'm always like, this is a cool thing that we're doing. And this is not something you're gonna do all the time, I'd imagine. Like,
no, not all the time.
No, but for Final Fantasies and for Kingdom Hearts, or if we ever do like Silent Hill or whatever, you're open to saying, hey, I want to jump in. That's how this started. So I'm really grateful that you jumped in when you did, because it did make for a different playthrough. And now that we're going to do Final Fantasy VII, it's going to be a different experience than if I was to make it myself. So I definitely appreciate it, and I appreciate the fact that you've wanted to spend so much time talking Final Fantasy VIII to put this to rest, But for all of you guys out there who were listening in for over 2 hours, thank you so much. If you listened for 5 seconds and said, no, I don't care, still, you clicked on this video, and I thank you so much. The fact that my channels have any interest at all, much less one of my videos being one of the best videos in like a day because people like Odin for some reason. Whatever it is, if it's because of Final Fantasy VIII, thank you. If it's because of Phoenix Wright, thank you. If it's because of Persona, if it's because of Leigh being a guest host, thank you so much. But overall,
especially thank you for that last one.
Yes, because I'm doing this because I enjoy it. Leigh has a lot of stuff that she does on her own. She has no reason to do this, but I'm very grateful that she was. But again, I'm grateful for any help and anybody that's been on this journey, whether they just joined or will join in the future. Just like Final Fantasy VII, we're not getting off this train that we're on. There's no getting off it. So we're going to keep the train going with Final Fantasy VII at some point. We'll put this up probably in January, but for me, for Leigh, thank you guys so much. Citizen Strife, signing off.